Hi, this is Gail Doby with Design Success University, and I have a really great friend of mine today that's with me. Her name is Kathy Martin-Friesz, and the name of her company is Martinique Interiors. And Kathy has been a designer for how many years?
About 20 years.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. So that's news to me. And Kathy is a specialist in drapery design, and so what we're intending to do today is talk a little bit about how you got into the business and what you're doing now and where you're going with the business and how that can help other designers that are out there. So Kathy, tell me a little bit about how you got started in the business.
I graduated from Colorado Institute of Art in 1984, and I was lucky enough to get a job with a showroom down on the old Design Lake Street district. And I was just a showroom manager, but it was a custom furniture manufacturer, and so they needed designs produced. And not knowing what I was doing or knowing I shouldn't do it, I did it. So I started designing custom furniture for the company. Another woman started a company called Denver Design Group and had probably 8 designers, and she hired me as a specialist to help design custom furniture. And her other designers, she was doing a lot of heavy marketing for us, and she didn't have somebody to take an appointment one evening. And I said, well, sure, I'll do it. What are they interested in? They said, window treatments. I said, sure. Not knowing anything about them. I sold them my first job and made a lot of money and just got such great joy about it. And I've continued my education through Window Fashions magazine and their education program.
Well, that's good to know. So tell me a little bit about this. I know you have an artistic background, and that's part of the reason you do what you do. And I remember when we first met several years ago that you actually had a design that you had hand-drawn. It's a beautiful rendering. So it was one of those things that for those of us that are specialists, if you try to draw something on AutoCAD, it's a little bit harsh maybe. And I think what's beautiful about Kathy's designs is she hand draws these incredible creations that she has, and I think that's what's so unique about what you do.
Thank you. I really enjoy doing that. Yeah, I'm very talented with my drawing. I'm very thankful for that. I've had heard horror stories about designers going out and selling these draperies to these people. And they get installed, and the designer's thinking one thing, and the customer's thinking, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to look anything like that. And I thought, I can't afford those mistakes. So, and for my own benefit too, I would draw and nurture the shapes and the proportions and make sure it was just perfect. And I do it all to scale. I usually use it in 1 inch. And then the customer can see. And I found that that is a wonderful communication for the workroom and the installation. And everybody's on the same page. And so I've just enjoy doing that, and I won't ever do it on a CAD. I will always do it by hand.
Oh, well, that's good. It's kind of it's kind of an old way of doing design, but it's so wonderful because there are so few people that really do that. And one of the things that I talked to Kathy about a few months ago was actually working with designers to help them do the design. And I can tell you that from my experience, I've done a lot of draperies over the years, and I've been in business over 20 years too. Draperies are, quite frankly, a nightmare to me. And I've done them and done them well for years, but I have had those moments of total panic when we've done these treatments, and we have very particular clients, and I could tell you just story after story about that. But basically, I think that if I had had someone like Kathy that I could have called and said, hey Kathy, why don't you just come in and be my designer for these draperies with this client, I probably would have had a lot better result and probably a lot less stress too. Because to me, one of the most difficult things is working with the workrooms and getting them to totally understand exactly what you want them to do. So I think what you do is a great service. So let's talk a little bit about your philosophy first, and then we'll get into how you can work with other designers.
Okay. I guess my philosophy is really to combine high-end fashion couture into the window treatments, to really give them a very high-style ball gown, if required, look. Also understanding that not every job requires a ball gown. A nice backdrop in a contemporary application is always important too. And just to educate people that draperies really are not that scary, and they are very important, and they do serve many different functions as well as beauty.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think they do. They really frame the window.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some really interesting conversations with one client who lived up in the mountains for a while, and she didn't want to cover her windows.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she's finally selling her house,
Mm-hmm.
and she let me put some draperies in, and then she said, "Oh, I really see this now." I was like, "Oh my God,
Right.
how many years did it take me to get her to that point where she
Right.
was willing to try that?" I'm sure you've had a few people like that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, one of the things that's so really terrific about what you've designed is you use a lot of different fabrics together and trims, and your use of hardware is really interesting. And I think that is one of the great features of what you bring to the table, because to me it's almost like a lost art.
Mm-hmm.
When you see drapery design these days, sometimes it's all in simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes there are homes that are really more appropriate for some of those older style, not older style, but more contemporary now.
Mm-hmm.
But you use new fabrics and you take those and treat those in some of the old designs,
Mm-hmm.
and then just combine those with a lot of different new accessory items and maybe some trims and some things like that.
Right.
So I think that's one of the fun things that you've done.
Yeah, I've been enjoying that. I've also found that just focusing my attention in that area, I'm really finding interesting and new products to really offer and really to bring to the table. I've used this woven plastic from this rep out of New York, and we've overlaid some other things underneath that. Actually, we've overlaid that on fabric, and it just gives a real contemporary kind of a thing. So there's Whiting and Davis. It's a wonderful mesh metal thing. I've been doing some little experimental swags and tiebacks with that too. So it's
Fun.
not just fabrics.
No. Well, that's the nice part. You can do so many different things today. So talk to me a little bit, because we've chatted just briefly about the fact that you have narrowed your niche. You have decided to focus mostly on window treatments and upholstery. And what brought you to do that?
To simplify my life. Designing with tile, that was great fun for years, but I'm to the point where everything is just square. I want something with some movement. I really appreciate fine, swooping lines. My favorite tool to work with, by all means, is the French curve. Any different type of French curve. So that's where I really get my joy. When I'm designing furniture as well, the French curve comes into play.
So how do you go about your process of designing your treatments?
Obviously discussing the function and what elements are required in the end. Understanding how much fabric a person can handle, would like to see, and then I just go. I've designed cornice boards that have like banding, like a belt, so it gives it kind of the Ralph Lauren kind of a look, and then the wool kind of stationary side panels. And I've done family rooms and then taken their portraits and stuff and made them into a sepia tone. You can do some really swoopy, wonderful asymmetric items. I love asymmetry, excuse me. And so, yeah.
Well, that sounds like fun. I like your word swoopy. That's a fun word.
It's fun to make up words, isn't it?
I think it's a word.